Today, we remember Rebekah and celebrate the beautiful soul she was. Rebekah's life was tragically cut short. She left behind family and friends who loved her. Through this letter, penned with love and memories by her friend Shay, we invite you to join us in reflecting upon Rebekah's remarkable life and the profound impact she left upon us all.
My name is Shay Sullivan. I am a Master of Arts candidate in the Linguistics Department at the University of Colorado, Boulder. I first met Rebekah in the winter of 2021, where I was waitressing at the Tamarack Brewing Company. I only had the pleasure of knowing Rebekah for less than a year. Rebekah was hired as a bartender in January that year. I was going through a rough time as my father had just recently passed away. Meeting Rebekah was a breath of fresh air at work, as well as a new friend that I leaned on at that time, and that was such a pleasure to spend my time with. Rebekah and I became close rather quickly, exchanged phone numbers, and would meet for drinks outside of work. I met her dog and became very close with Rebekah as a colleague and a friend. She had articulated to me her ongoing separation and that specifically money was very tight for her as she was separating from her husband and wanted to begin a new journey in her life. I received a bartending waitressing position at Plunk, Missoula, where I was making a considerably better income than at Tamarack. I extended this to Rebekah, where she applied for a position, which was accepted shortly after. Thus, Rebekah and I began working at one of the classiest cocktail bars in Missoula, arguably the whole state of Montana, where we made incredible money and loved what we did. Having Rebekah on the floor on a busy night was like having a beloved aunt or an uncle work with you on a school project. There was no anxiety at her presence, rather she was calming, loving, and grounding. She always had some incredible insight to offer and some fascinating mode of lifting your spirits. In the spaces I worked with her, she was always the rock for many, no matter how terrible a situation or a whole night had been. She felt like a family member, more than anyone with whom I have worked heretofore, and restaurant co-workers often feel like family. Spending simple time, chatting with Rebekah, was time I never wanted to end. Aside from being one of the most loving, kind, caring, and compassionate women I have ever had the pleasure of meeting, she was effortlessly fun and humorous. She made everyone around her laugh and have a good time, just by being who she was, on or off the clock. We all knew that after-work drinks would not be half as much fun if Rebekah wasn't there. There are so many times where I have missed Rebekah deeply, and I think about her often. I also feel the need to say that the situation of Rebekah's disappearance was not only one of the most mysterious and bizarre events in my life, it has been one of the most challenging and painful in how her case was handled, how it ended, and how justice was never served to those who did her harm. I feel the need to speak to this, honestly, and inconsequentially so, but when Angela asked me to write this letter, I have been struggling thinking of how best to write this to a group of people who knew Rebekah so well, so closely. As a result, I consulted with another coworker who knew Rebekah and who was involved with Angela after the disappearance of Rebekah. Her name is Sarah. Here are her words, with some personal additions and adaptation.
What's most striking to me about Becca and what happened to her is silence. We hear all the time about incidents like hers, whether it be suicide, disappearance, or forced disappearance. Someone leads what from the outside looks like a normal, unassuming life. Until one day they don't. I knew Becca as a fellow server at Plunkwine, Missoula. Becca came to work, performed her daily duties with a competency that suggested she was using about 10% of her available brain power, and then went home, to what or to whom or to do whatever else, practically nobody knew, including myself. None of us knew what the other 90% was going through because she never shared. The rest of us are guilty of never asking. No one should have to, or feel they need to, suffer in silence. Becca was a firecracker and quick as a whip, which was apparent on the floor and in private, passing conversation. She was independent, in some ways guarded. I took her autonomy as a sign of strength and never felt the need to dig any deeper. And apparently, I'm not the only one. Because when Becca went missing, there were more questions than answers, more complacent shoulder shrugs than action, and more treading of water than deep diving. Only at the bottom of it all is where we'd find truth, where we'd find that there is nothing more crucial in this life than to lean on one another, where we'd find Becca. Becca was silent, and she paid the ultimate price. Anyone who knew Becca and her story that kept silent did her the ultimate disservice. And anyone who played a part in silencing Angela, Jerry, friends and family are the same forces of evil that took Becca from our lives too soon, that keep tragedies like Becca's perpetuating. We will not remain silent. If something looks, feels, sounds, or seems wrong, say something. If everything looks, feels, sounds, or seems perfectly fine, say something. How are you, friend? What is happening in your world? To those who took part in the thousands of hours spent searching, campaigning, fundraising, donating, investigating, and promoting the advancement toward truth and justice, I thank you. Not even as a coworker, let alone as a friend, which I could hardly claim to be. I simply thank you as myself. And I thank you on behalf of everyone who might at some point feel isolated or alone. Who might at some point find themselves suffering in silence. On behalf of everyone who might one day find themselves in Becca's shoes. I am thankful that people like you are in this world. No one has to suffer alone. And all of us are responsible for each other's well-being. Whether proactively or reactively, all of us are responsible for the preservation or unraveling of justice. I will not be silent. I will not be complacent. I will not wait for a tragedy to occur before saying something. That is my pact to each of you. I hope you will join me in that.
I miss Rebekah often. There has not been a single day since she went missing where she does not cross my mind in some way. I and every other person who loved Rebekah were not afforded the ability to love such a gracious and incredible human to the extent that she should have been loved. Quite simply, Rebekah was taken from this earth far too soon. But one thing I do know is that she will never be forgotten. If I am someone who worked with her for 7 months and I think about her every day, I know her family and other loved ones likely think about her incessantly. Rebekah is a beloved soul who will never be forgotten. While she may not be with us today, her memory and legacy lives in the hearts of those that love her. I intend to live my life and do the work that I do, always keeping Rebekah and her legacy in mind. Rebekah, I miss you so much every day, and I hope wherever you are now is filled with peace and prosperity.
Thank you, Shay and Sarah, for sharing your beautiful letter. It holds a compelling message. It encapsulates the delicate struggle between extending a helping hand and honoring an individual's, a friend's, right to privacy. Rebekah's story reminds us of the complexities in recognizing signs of distress while respecting personal boundaries. Let us carry forward the legacy of love and compassion that Rebekah embodied. May her spirit live on forever in our hearts, inspiring us to cherish each moment and to reach out to those in need. We can honor Rebekah's memory by spreading kindness and advocating for those who may be suffering in silence. May Rebekah's journey serve as a guiding light, illuminating our path as we navigate the delicate balance between support and privacy.